Hey everybody, welcome to a lazy Saturday. Today I am going to create a new bag. I had a request for a bag that is clear but also leather and also has fringe. And I am naming this bag the Sheila bag because that's who it's for, is Sheila. And I'm going to attempt to create that pattern here with you all today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. There ain't no telling with what I'm going to come up with. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started and see what happens. Okay, so the Sheila bag. I should have wrote bag under that, but whatever. Y'all get the picture. It's a bag. She has the Annabelle already from SciSwag Bags. Made that for her, and she told me that she wants it a little bit smaller than that. So, yeah, this should be challenging. I am not going to do the same shape. It is going to be basically a box bag, but I have to manage to incorporate leather on the top as a trim and then clear vinyl for the bottom half, but also have the fringe, the leather fringe on the sides. So I think what I'm shooting for is 5 inches high, 9 inches wide, and maybe, let's go with 3 inches deep. I think that might be good. Be any more perfect. Actually did fairly well. Alright, so if I'm gonna go with 9 inches wide. I'm not so sure my numbered paper, alphanumeric paper, is printed so straight. That is 9 inches. There we go, 5 inches. And 5 inches. This would be a really small bag if I do 9 inches. I mean, I still gotta seam allowance too. Because it's gotta be able to fit at least a cell phone, right? So if we do, I mean, my cell phone wouldn't fit in there, but it'd be tight. So I'm gonna add an inch to that. On both sides, because it's actually going to be a 1/2 inch seam allowance too. So I need to actually bring this down 1/2 inch. Okay, this was 1/2 inch. So clearly I'm using 1/2 inch seam allowance just because. Okay. So that would end up being about 9 by 5. No. I need to add on the bottom. This line is wrong. Because if I want to have it be 3 inches deep, I need that to be added on as well. So, let's see, well, 3 inches, 1.5 inches on either side, plus I have inch seam allowance, should be 2 inches. I'm just going to bring this part down 2 inches. And this paper might just be big enough to do this. But if not, that's okay. I have more. Alright, so that's that. Now, I've added a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but I didn't account for 1.5 inches. So, let's actually do, it's going to be 2 inches from here and 2 inches from here. This is seriously just the right size for this. Okay. Sorry for the loud slap of the ruler there. Alright, that's starting to look a little bit better in terms of the bag size. And that's including our 1/2 inch. So, if I draw a straight line, that'd be great. Alright, so we need to ignore this line here. And it's not perfect, I know. We're going to ignore these lines here. And here. Y'all get to see me make a bunch of mistakes. I love it. Now, here's the trick to this. I need the top to be leather. And I kind of feel like it should have a facing of leather as well. So that would mean, and for the record, this will be my very first time dealing with leather in any sense of the word. I've done vinyl, faux leather, but I've not done any real leather. And I don't even know if my machine can handle it, but I'm going to give it a shot. See what happens. And come along with me on that journey. I don't know if you guys can see that. Very simple box bag, right? How much of a topping do I want? Because it really needs to be, the whole point of this bag is so that it can be taken into stadiums for ball games. And yeah, it's got to be clear. But it's okay if it has that leather strip at the top. So I'm wondering how much of that I should do. Because essentially the bag's going to be, that's where that one's supposed to be. Hang on. Y'all seriously getting to watch me bumble my way through this. Write this down, 1/2 inch seam allowance, just so that I can keep track. For the record, I am not someone who has been trained at all in the way of making patterns. I have made my own pattern for my shirts, not the one I'm currently wearing, but I have I'm very simply learned how to, draft my own pattern for my own shirts, but I have not learned anything in terms of making bags. I am I'm winging it and hoping for the best. And y'all can judge me on my final product. Okay, well, I'm going with it because it looks plenty big enough. Now, all right, figure out the top. If we are, this is currently 5 inches deep, or tall, because we have a 1/2 inch seam allowance. This is going to be the bottom of the bag. That's seam allowance. But if I do a fold over on the facing, on the top part, I'll still need that 1/2 inch seam allowance. But I'll also need a 1/2 inch at the bottom of that. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, we are going to take off, I'll need another 1/2 inch there, and that would give me 1.5 inches of the facing. Is that enough to allow her to take this bag into, yeah, I think it would be. So why don't we go ahead and we're going to add a 1/2 inch to this, and we will cut it on the fold for the top part. And all the way out to here. And we're going 1.5 inches. That is my seam allowance already included. Now, I haven't even considered how I'm going to do connectors or anything like that. I may do them in the seam on the side with D-rings, and sorry, hang on. All right, so that would be the top. Cut on fold. Yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter which side to do it on, but that's fine. All right, now this is the vinyl portion, clear vinyl. I have made one other clear vinyl bag, but it was the Summit sling bag that I made, and I ended up, I mean, absolutely no lining for that. You know, it turned out really good, actually, for someone else. And I'm thinking this one's going to be a little more difficult, because with that one, it was all vinyl and like very specific pattern pieces. And then I just used binding to cover all raw edges. Not that vinyl, clear vinyl especially, would need to be bound, but it just made it look really cool. And it was done in orange binding. That was the requested color, and much like that bag, this one too is going to be an orange leather. So, my scraps, and this is the Sheila. Got two. This is going to be the clear vinyl. All right. Now there's only one way to find out if I have completely butchered this or if this is going to work. And that is if I go ahead and break out the clear vinyl. And I think I will use, since it's a tester, I don't want to use the leather. I don't know. Let me go sift through my fabrics and see what we're going to turn this into. Hang tight. So I have chosen to use a scrap of my faux leather. I actually made a bag from this. Can't remember. I think I made a big tote bag. Yeah, it's kind of like a carry-on bag for my friend's husband, and they took it on their cruise. So yeah, so I'm using that. Now, the real bag. It's going to be this orange suede leather. And I have to, of course, make basically this part out of that. And then I will be doing fringe out of this as well. It scares the bejesus out of me to even consider this because I literally have zero experience working with leather or suede. So that will be an absolute first for me. For now, I think what I want to do is what I'll probably do for this pattern. I'll have to run this by Sheila since it is for her. But what I think I want to do is, and I'm not going to do it on this one because I'm not wasting the hardware on it. But, oh, I need another one of these. Silly me. Needed two. I thinking since it's going to be folded over like that, I could probably do a magnetic snap and then just have it snap close on both sides, like together. But I'll have to check with her. If she wants a zipper, that will definitely alter how I do the pattern. And I probably should have checked with her on that first. But we'll make this one and, you know, see what she thinks. And this is just, you know, a test run. So we'll run with it and see what happens. I'm going to hit the pause button here and go cut out my second piece because silly me didn't do that. I also will go ahead and I have basically just cut two big pieces off of the clear vinyl, and then I'll cut the pattern pieces out. The vinyl was fighting me and didn't want to let me just simply pull this out, so I just cut a piece off. And yeah, I will go ahead and get these pieces cut out. I now have two pieces of vinyl stuck together. I don't want to let go of my ego. There are two here, I promise, that are cut out in this shape. I have two pieces of the top. This is 11 inches by 4 inches, and it will be essentially what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to mark a line 1 inch in and on both pieces, and after I sew the ends together, I'll probably stick double-sided tape on it before I do this, but I'm going to mark a line in 1 inch, and after I sew the two ends together, I am going to fold one side in by 1/2 inch. That's the seam allowance. That is going to be the side that goes inside of the bag. I will stitch this side on, and I realized I had made a mistake, but that's okay. I need another 1/2 inch on this side. Since this is just a test run, I'm not terribly worried about it. I know I just need to add 1/2 inch. Add 1/2 inch seam allowance. Anytime you cut a pattern part, you have to add seam allowance. I accommodated that for the top part. I did not accommodate it for this part. And like I said, this is just a tester run, so it's just going to be 1/2 inch smaller than what I wanted it to be to begin with. So, like I was saying, I will basically sew on this half, but when I flip it over to the inside, it needs to have that seam allowance already folded under, so that way they line up nicely. And I have actually changed out my thread. For those of you who watched the last video, the Mirabelle tote, I had purple variegated, I think it's called, thread, And this time I have switched to a color that closely resembles the material. It will still stand out, I think, because I feel like this is too light. But again, this is a tester bag. It's okay. I am going to go ahead and give this a shot, and I will show you what it looks like here in a few moments. I've sewn my sides. I have folded in that seam allowance to that marking that I had previously chosen. I think what I want to do is I want the stitching to show, because it's going to show regardless, right? So I might as well make it look good. So I'll sew these bottom pieces down together, and then I will fold open the seam allowances and top stitch on both sides of that. So hang tight. So I kind of changed my mind, and I decided not to top stitch on either side of that bottom seam, and instead I created this base for it. I actually really like that concept. It not only, I feel like it just gives the bag, and of course, like my little blooper, I don't know if you can see it where it stretched the material a little bit. That's fine. It's just a tester. Yeah, I think it's gonna be cute. It's gonna be short, but it's gonna be cute, and I think it just gives the bag a little bit more oomph. So I am going to go ahead and attach the top part. We're going to flip that so that it's wrong side out. We're going to match up our seams, and then I will sew 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around, and we'll just have to see how that turns out. So I have sewn on my top piece and folded it back in on itself. Lesson learned, do not cut the seam allowance, because now this is going to be a nightmare to top stitch. So not going to do that on the next one. I have also compared it to another Annabelle that I made. Annabelle. And this is the Saya Swag pattern. I made this one, which is similar to the one that I made for Sheila. And I am definitely going to have to increase that height, but I knew that. I knew that I messed that up. I know she wanted it smaller than the Annabelle, but I was a little too short. So, good thing this is a tester. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish this out. Of course, I'm not doing straps and all that fun stuff for it. I will just go ahead and top stitch all the way around to seal this top part down and hide that raw edge of the vinyl. And yeah, we'll revisit and show you what it looks like. Well, I am throwing in the towel on my test run. No matter what I do, it is actually skipping stitches. This was just the wrong material to choose. I could probably throw some cello tape, scotch tape on under the presser foot. I tried some cartoon paper. It wants to stick, it wants to stretch. It's not going to sit right. It's just a test, so it's okay. I know that I need to make this higher, and I'm thinking rather than just that 1/2 inch, that it might need to be a full inch, well, 1.5 inches if you count the seam allowance. And I absolutely love the concept of the bottom there, so I will do that again. And I just need to check with Miss Sheila and see if she wants to have snap closures for the top of her bag, or if she wants a full zipper for that. If she wants a zipper, that's going to change how I do the top of the bag completely. So sit tight, and I'll let you know what she chooses. We're back. I have had a conversation with Miss Sheila, and she would like her bag to close with a zipper. I completely gave up on the first test round. Changed out my needle to a bigger needle. I increased my tension. I did all the things, and that material just refuses. So since it's a tester, I chucked it into the UFO project category. And I have gone ahead and chosen a different, we're just going simple black vinyl, literally stiffer. And I'm okay with that. I think it'll be easier for me to sew it. Cut out the new pieces so that I can do the zipper. And I will actually incorporate this. And I'm really hoping that I don't waste the zipper. I am going to I have also increased the size of this so that it is taller, and I've recut out the bottom pieces. I'm going to sew up this bottom seam. I'm going to attach these pieces, and once I have done that, I will show you what it looks like. Sit tight. If any of you have sewn with clear vinyl, you know how much of a challenge that can be. It wants to stick to everything. However, I think we did a pretty good job of getting that stitched down. I wouldn't call that a top stitch, really. I'd call that more of an edge stitch since it's so close to the edge. I do think that I did a pretty good job with that. This is all one big experiment to see if it works out okay. And yeah, we'll just move on to the next step. That's going to be two things. I'm going to sew up the sides of the clear vinyl, and I will then, I think I'll go ahead and box my corners as well at that point, and then we'll deal with the zipper. So sit tight. She is ready to move on to the next step. Now, that next step is going to be figuring out the zipper. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure in 1 inch from each end of 2 panels. And I'm going to attach one side of each zipper to each side of the panel. I'm gonna have to be careful here because I don't want to mess this up. I really don't. I think, of course, each side will be sandwiched in between the panels because one side is for the exterior, one side for the interior. So yeah, I think I'm gonna measure 1 inch on all 4 panels. Actually, now that I think of it. That will basically be the distance for the zippers, which will give about 1/2 inch on each panel of clearance for the zipper. I'm going to actually pull this apart, fold down the ends, and that'll be where the zipper stops when it closes. The other end, I will probably cut another piece of the black vinyl to make a tab to cover the end. Yeah, I think that will work. It's one big experiment. So we're going to try that, and I will come back and show you what I've come up with. I have sewn my zipper into the panels. I have not top stitched anything. I did kind of give it a press a little bit just to give it, it will be top stitched, but I wanted to just get it to where I could get an idea of what that's going to look like. Now, I did not sew all the way to the ends because they need to be connected on opposite sides to form the loop, which will be the top part of the bag. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to clip all of my sides together. There should be 4 separate sides that you're cutting or clipping and sewing them together. And once I have done that, I'll show you what it looks like. Here's where we're at. I have sewn the seams, and then I went back and I flipped everything right sides together so that I could complete that sewing where I did not sew all the way to the end when I attached the zipper. And now it's a complete loop, properly sewn. The other thing that I did was I marked a line on the lining side 1 inch down so that I could fold over, and I used double-sided tape. That's to fold over that seam allowance by 1/2 inch. So then when I turn it back out after I sew this, when I turn it to the inside after I sew this part onto the clear vinyl, I won't have to worry about trying to fold that up. It's already folded up into position. I might actually go ahead and stick another row of like 1/8 inch double-sided tape onto that seam allowance there, so that when I fold it over, it'll stay in place and make it easier to sew. I fought so much with the first test round. So I'm like, how can I eliminate the chaos? The other thing I might also do for the real version of this is I might do, instead of, I guess it's okay. It just felt like it was tight. Yeah, it's a little tight to sew, but I think it's a good, let me flip this out and show you what I'm trying to say. Maybe. The zipper tails have stayed attached, believe it or not. It's not necessary that they do at this point, because I have a line marked on there to make sure it lines back up after I sew everything up. My concern was that there was not going to be a lot of room at that seam for play on the zipper, but I think 1/2 inch on either side of that seam was actually, or 1 inch in from the end, left 1/2 inch on either side, which gave it 1 inch total space for, like, if the strap wants to be stuck inside the bag or outside the bag, the strap, the zipper tail. Yeah, I think that's good. And it's not a very long zipper tail, obviously, but yeah, I think that's good. I'm gonna go ahead and first flip it back out where it belongs, and I'm going to sew this onto the clear vinyl and then get it down into place and see if I can manage to make this work. Fingers crossed. Oh, and I didn't top stitch around the zipper yet. I want to wait until I've got this all attached properly, and then I can do the top stitching around the entire top of the bag after I top stitch this down into place. So sit tight. I'm going to attach this to the clear vinyl. I've got the top sewn on, and I have it completely flipped inside out, and that is because I need to get this seam to flip up, and it's just easier to flip that up, and then I can try to get that to sit the way I want it to, and then I can fold this top down, which I did use 1/8 double-sided sticky tape. I'm gonna fold that down onto there, and I'll show you what it's like before I sew it up. So sit tight. Well, I have proof of concept. The pattern itself works. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's kind of like a pouch with a square bottom, right? The one thing that I obviously need to figure out is how I'm going to get fringe in the side. And I'm also going to have to make sure that when I make the real one, I sew that zipper to the correct side, because I legitimately sewed it inside out. I was completely able to top stitch all the way around using the sticky tape. Totally worked. Oh, I skipped a stitch up here. Yeah, that happens. Good news is this is, again, a tester, so the fact that it is inside out and backwards, it's alright. I can use it for whatever I want. And I am very happy with how this is, other than the fact that I did it backwards. I will make sure that I'm super careful with that in the future. The other thing that I will do differently, and I kind of thought this might be a problem, is instead of doing 1 inch markings at the zipper tails, I'm going to up that to 1.5 inches. It's just way too tough to get past that spot with the zipper. So yeah, I'm going to put my zipper pull back where she belongs with her other zipper pull friends and save her for another day. And yeah, I'm going to run this by Miss Sheila and see if she is happy with the size. And if she is happy with the size, then I can figure out the fringe part of it. And for comparison, this is the Annabelle from Size Swag. It's a Size Swag pattern. I made Sheila one just like this, and she said she wanted it to be smaller. So it is skinnier or shorter, but at its highest point, it's the same as the height there. So we'll see what she thinks about that. What I would probably also do is add in, I'm going to need to do straps. I need to figure out how I'm going to do the straps. I don't know. I haven't decided on the straps yet. Find the best option for straps. So stand by and we'll see what I come up with. Welcome back. I realize it's only been a second for you, but it's actually been a day for me. This girl needed a break. Needed to wrap my head around the mistakes that I made and how I can go about fixing those. And so I did make some changes to the pattern. Not that you can tell if I show you that. Made a couple of changes. Made the box corners a little bit smaller because the base was coming out wider than I intended it to. So now that should actually rectify that problem. I also figured out that I want to attempt to use my suede to make strap connectors and then rivet them on one on either side, front and back, so to speak. And it's going to have a crossbody strap. So I'm kind of still working that part out in terms of how I'm going to make the strap with it being a suede. How to make sure it's strong enough for that. And before I actually get started on sewing this, your girl took a little trip today. After work, of course. And we went to Hobby Lobby. Why did we go to Hobby Lobby? Because we've got a project coming up. And this is the fabric that will be used for that. So I went and I picked it up because most people are aware every other week Hobby Lobby does do sales. Usually they do sales on their fabric, and so I wanted to pick this up while it was on sale. I will be making the Country Cow Design parent pack with this. I'm actually really looking forward to that because I think this fabric is heckin' cute. Spiky. That was what was requested. The person that is getting it is having a boy, so that's going to be the project. Now, other thing I picked up while I was at Hobby Lobby. If any of y'all actually know me personally, you know I have a slight obsession. Slight obsession. With the Highland cow. Last year, I missed out on the Highland cows. And I was warned. My aunt, she sent me a message and she was like, hey, but my Hobby Lobby didn't have them in. I love me some Highland cows. And these are pretty big. But they were on sale. So I finally bit the bullet. And I struggled with the price because they are expensive. And then I remembered that I actually worked a little overtime this week. So yeah, that's gonna help. I try to be, you know, frugal, aka cheap, and not spend money on things that, you know, I don't necessarily need, but they bring me so much joy. All right, time to put them away. And I haven't even figured out where I'm gonna put them yet. I think I need to put shelves up in this room so I can house all my Highland cows, although these are a bit weighty, so it's gonna have to be a sturdy shelf. But I can't wait to have a proper sewing space that I can truly just decorate and turn into a sewing studio, crafting studio. One day, I can dream. So we are going to revisit. First step, of course, there are 2 pieces here. First step is going to be to sew the bottom. 1/2-inch seam allowance. I'm going to fold that open, fold open the seams. I will then attach my bottom pieces, which are black. Same exact material I used last time. The one thing that I'm doing differently for this test is I'm not actually going to sew in a zipper. I didn't scavenge the zipper out of the old one, so this one's not going to get one until I scavenge that. And I may very well, if this goes the way I wanted to, this is very likely going to be the last test. I have already mentally figured out how I'm going to do the fringe on the sides, and I'm not even going to mess with that until I cut into the suede. And YouTube, thank you very much. I have been hardcore. That downtime that I had was not really downtime at all, because I was watching YouTube videos on how to deal with suede and leather and fringe and how to properly cut it and how to sew it. And every sign points to the fact that my girl here can handle it. So yeah, let's dive in and see if I can quickly get this bag to where we want it to be. Sit tight, and I'll get the bottom taken care of and show you how that turns out. Is I have actually cut this black piece to be a little bit wider, and the reason I did that, and actually it's the same exact size as this one, but the reason I didn't shrink it with the changing of the size of the box corners is because I don't want that right there. I want the bottom of the box to be the bottom of the box. So I'm hoping that by doing it this way, the bottom of the box will be the absolute bottom of the box. And I won't know until I box the corners. Experimenting is fun. And I'm gonna give this a go, sew up my sides, and see how the boxing goes on those corners, and if it turns out the way that I'm hoping it will. And then I will, I'll show you what it looks like. That's the look of a happy girl. It worked, y'all. No excess on that clear vinyl sticking over. The corners are perfect. The only thing that I can maybe do a little different, maybe, is shaping the black, or that bottom, to fit the box corner, so that it kind of goes around. I don't know how to explain that. It's maybe to have it, you know, fit the corner here. But I'm not really worried about it, because I was able to easily stitch that up, the 1/2-inch seam allowance. I did 2 lines of stitching on the bottom on that corner, and then trimmed it out down to like an 1/8, between an 1/8 and a 1/4, scant corner, fat 1/8, I don't know. But it is perfect, absolutely perfect. It worked, and I'm ecstatic about that. And now I just need to remember that my seams are currently on the inside where they belong, so that when I sew on the next part, I don't do it backwards like I did on the last one. But since I'm not putting a zipper in, I mean, it should be okay. because this one's not getting a zipper. This is just going to become like a catch-all pouch. Oh, and when I do the actual fringe, when I sew the side seams together, that's when I'll attach the fringe, and that will help me to not make the same mistake twice in terms of sewing things inside out, because the fringe will be on the correct side. So I will go ahead and basically just do the top part. Now when I do a zipper, it ends up getting like a 1/4 inch seam allowance around when you sew the zipper in. I suppose I'll do that when I sew these together. The difference with this is I can sew my ends together completely on both pieces, and then sew them all together into a loop, and then I can attach it to the bag. I'm going to go ahead and sew my ends and everything together on these, show you where that's at, and that'll be right before I attach it to the bag. So sit tight, I'll show you what that looks like here in a sec. Anyone want to guess what I forgot to do? I forgot to mark my 1-inch line so that I can fold up the one side of the interior part. That's alright, I can still do it. Slightly more inconvenient, but it's okay. Everything's gonna be fine. I've got it completely sewn. I sewed the sides, and then I sewed all the way around, right sides together, and basically now when I sew the next part on, I'll have this opened up completely, if it will let me. Turning stuff is always hard when it's stiff vinyl, and this is definitely a very stiff vinyl, which I'm okay with. I wanted to make sure this was something that would be easy for me to test on, and so yeah, so there we go. Now of course we always do right sides together, so flip that right side out, and we'll do right sides together with my vinyl. And this is the part where, when I do this with the zipper, this is the part where I need to be super careful about which side I am sewing. So I'm gonna have to seriously pay attention to that so that I don't accidentally attach this with the zipper side facing the wrong way, because that would be extremely unpleasant with suede. But I really do not want to mess this up when I'm actually sewing on the suede. I can't even begin to tell you how nervous I am about that, because I've never done it before. And what happens if I fail? I don't want to fail. I'm not afraid of failing. I just don't want to fail. And I mean, I know we learn when we fail, which I have failed multiple times with this, for sure. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and match up my seams on this, and then just clip it into place all the way around, and mentally take stock of where my zipper should be when I do this. And then, no, before I do that, I need to mark my 1-inch line. So I'm going to mark my 1-inch line, fold it up to the 1-inch line to give myself that 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then I'll fit it, I'll sew it into place, show you what it looks like before I top stitch everything. Alrighty, she is currently all sewn up in terms of the top to the bottom, and I have it inside out. Seams are all on the outside at the moment, and I have double-sided tape offset from the edge, because that's going to be the edge I'm sewing on, and I have this seam folded up so that when I fold this down, it's going to cover this raw edge. I'm going to go ahead and get this down where I need it to be. I will top stitch all the way around it, top stitch all the way around the top, and then we're going to be done. So I have her inside out right now. Seams are all on the outside, or well, these seams, you can't see the other ones. And I am going to top stitch like so, because that's going to be easier than trying to finagle it through the machine if it were the right way out. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and we'll show you the finished product. I am super happy with that. You think it's just a simple box bag, right? But getting to this point of knowing exactly how I want it to look on the bottom, how I want the top to look, I know what the sides are going to look like, even though I haven't done it on here. The request for fringe has been heard and understood, and there will be fringe coming out of these sides. Very, very happy with this result. And I just got to make sure that when I put the zipper in that I do it the right way. And I need to make sure that I have handles in place. And that's the only part I have to figure out, is where I'm going to do the handles, or the D-ring connectors. I know I'm going to make them out of the, I'm going to make them out of the suede. And I already have that plan in my mind of exactly how I'm going to do it. And I actually picked up some leather cement to make that happen, because I'm going to basically cement two pieces together to make the D-ring so that it's sturdy enough to hold and not fall apart easily. So, but I am so happy with this. Like, this is a usable catch-all kind of bag. Yeah, completely usable. Unlike the first one, which was a complete failure. I'm very happy. And I will scavenge the second one because I want that zipper. I may not be using it anytime soon, but I'm not going to waste it. And yeah, I'm going to move on to cutting out the pieces for the suede, and then I'll cut out the vinyl, and we'll get to starting on this. I will have to change out my thread though, because I'm not going to use that color thread. Did you see that skip stitch? I missed that. That's alright. The rest of it looks pretty good. But who cares, because it's mine and it was just a tester. But yeah, I've got orange thread. Technically, I think it's called tangerine. That is being delivered tomorrow. And for you, that'll be in like a hot second. But once that is delivered, I'll be able to sew things up. Let's hope that FedEx does not let me down. But I love the weight of this, and it smells really good. But yeah, I'm gonna make the fringe out of this. I'm gonna make the top out of this. I'm gonna make the bottoms out of this. I'll make the strap. Hopefully, I should probably pull that first and make that before I do everything else, just to make sure that I have the right length. And yeah, I'm gonna get to work. Hang tight, and I'll be back to sew up the real deal here in just a sec. There has been a slight change of plans. My machine, for as good as she is not good enough to handle real leather or suede. So, plan B. I did get some orange colored marine vinyl shipped to me. That was the color that is requested for this bag. And I'm gonna go ahead and make it up with this orange vinyl. Do I think that it won't come out as good as it would if it were the suede? Yep, I think that. Because let's face it, suede, right? But I'm gonna go ahead and do it anyway, and I'm gonna give it to her. And got our fringe all cut out. All of our pieces are cut out except for the river. I haven't got that to length yet. Changing up how I'm doing the connectors, since we're doing vinyl and not the suede. I am going to do these like every other normal strap connector, folded over. I'll still show you. Yeah, 1/2 inch seam allowances all the way around for everything. Nickel hardware, clear vinyl, nickel zipper teeth. And I'm going to first go ahead and get my strap created, and going to do my D-ring connectors, and then we'll get into the bag. I want to do the stuff that's going to take up more bobbin thread first, and yeah, we'll get those two things done, and I will show you what that looks like. I completed my D-ring connectors, pretty much standard. Once I have them in, they'll be nice and tight up against the bag, and I may or may not fit some rivets. Haven't decided yet. Now for this strap, I went ahead and I marked down the center line, and I put some extra stabilizer just on one side of that, and I used double-sided tape, and I folded the side to the line, not through the line. And as I do it, I remind myself, to the line, not through the line, because what will happen is when I fold this part over and fold it in half again, I don't want too much bulk in this seam. So to the line, not through the line. I'm gonna go ahead and finish that up, get it stitched, and I'll show you what it's like. That came out really good. Nice stitching. Very, very happy with that. Now, time for some hardware. Set that bad boy aside. One of the things that I always do first is my strap slider. And it's sort of a two-step process for the strap slider, because I am going to fit a strap end onto this, and I need to leave room for rivets and the strap end itself. Strap end. I am going to go ahead and fit this on like so, and I'm going to do that. Got a stiletto. I put it on in place where I want it, and there are screw holes there. So I'm going to hold it in place, take my stiletto, poke a hole, poke a hole. Doesn't go all the way through, just an indentation to let me know, or let the material know, where the screw needs to go. And the other thing that I am doing, because I am using some E6000 adhesive flexible glue, I guess, and I like to actually put that, I don't want to lose these screws. There we go. I take the E6000 and I like to put it in this slot and then slide the strap in there, and that way it kind of squishes all that glue around and potentially gets it up into the holes as well. And I've tried it many different ways. It has not gone well. except for doing it this way. So just a little bit, and I don't lay this down. I just set it like this because I found that if you lay it down, it oozes. And that's not any fun. So now when I put this back on, I just slide it right back over and I can see the glue. It does dry clear, so that's fine. And I will likely get it on my fingers, which I just did. And off my fingers. I'll take a screw and a handy dandy screwdriver. These screws are so tiny. Did I mention they're tiny? I might need a smaller screwdriver. Hang on. And I got this set off of Amazon a long time ago. I don't think they're magnetic. Or maybe they are. It stayed on there. Yeah. Drop that into the hole. Screw that one. Get the other one. And I'm super careful about which side I put this on. I want the screws to be on the back side, the side that nobody's gonna see. Just tighten those down. And there you have it. Strap end is on. And then slide our strap slider back to where I want it. Give myself enough room. I got glue on my fingers. E6000 is fun. And I think that's about where I'm going to want that to be. So I want to leave. Yeah, I think that's actually pretty perfect. I need to make sure that we give enough room from the bottom edge of the strap end and the bottom edge of the strap slider for the rivet to fit nicely. I'm gonna go ahead and mark that. I am not measuring, just kind of give myself a little dot in the center. That I smudged with my finger. Try again. Alright. So you can see the little mark there. Then we take our hole punch. And remember, I did put some reinforcement in this strap. So I'll line up my mark with the hole punch end. Probably really hard to see that. And then just squeeze. And now we have a hole all the way through both layers, or all the layers. And rivet is in. Lay that right in its place. Rivet is secure. Take our swivel hook and we want to feed it on. And what we're going to do is make sure that it is on the right side. We don't want to, get our thing in place and then find out that we put our swivel hook on inside out. Sure, you could swivel it back around. It'd be really, really hard, but it's doable. So I've confirmed I am on the correct side for this. And then I'll take my other end. Pardon the interruption. I do not remember where I left off, except that I made sure, I've got the hiccups, made sure that my hook is on the correct way. And now I'm going to put the other side on. once that is through, I can fit the other strap end, and then I will do the same thing that I did with the other one. Fold that over, punch a hole through, and fit it with a rivet. So hang tight. I will do that. I'll be right back. We have got a good looking strap, and we're going to set that aside along with our strap connectors. Trim up my threads on those strap connectors. I did baste the ends of this shut just to make it easier when it comes time to attach to the bag. I almost cut myself with the scissors. Careful with your scissors. There we go. Now just to keep these nice and safe and secure, I don't want to lose them. They're on there. And they'll be there when I'm ready for them. Next up, we are going to move to the vinyl. I am going to go ahead and sew my 1/2 inch seam allowance down the bottom. And I am going to press open that seam using my seam roller. And then I will attach the bottom pieces for the front, for the interior and the exterior. Just a reminder, my bottom, interior and exterior pieces are 3 inches by 9 inches, which is longer than the bottom, but longer and wider than the bottom. But I wanted to make sure that that covers completely. I'm going to trim out the excess once I have boxed the corners. So I'm going to go ahead and use some double-sided tape to get them fit into place. Interior, exterior. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and edge stitch, or I guess top stitch, really close to the edge stitch, all the way around the 4 sides, and hopefully it'll come out the way we want it to. I have fit in my fringe on either side, and I did that about 3/4 of the way from each end, and that's to allow for the 1/2 inch seam allowance with a little bit of wiggle room. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch up these 2 sides, and yeah, then I'm going to box the corners. And I think what I'll do is when I'm down to that last corner, I'll come back and show you exactly what I'm doing. Finish that first corner, and I am going to go ahead and box up the other corner. What I did was line up that center from the orange bottom with the center seam on the clear vinyl, and then trim away this excess. And let me clip that down. I'll show you what exactly it should look like. This is how I got my, essentially the stitching for the bottom to be hidden. I kind of wanted to hide as much as possible. Really hard to do with a clear bag, but not impossible. So the edge of my vinyl, clear vinyl, is right there. So now trim away the excess, and this, I'm doing this before I sew it so that I can stay lined up on my 1/2 inch seam allowance without anything interfering. So now the vinyl and the orange is lined up perfectly. I'm going to go ahead and stitch that. And again, 1/2 inch seam allowance. I've got my stitch length set to 3. And I will do a second row of stitching just inside of that first line. So I've got all of that to contend with, and we want a nice clean finish, so we're going to trim this back to about an 1/8 inch away from that second line of stitching, and then we'll trim up all of our threads. That looks good. And I missed a thread. There we go. I think it came out quite nice. And we'll do a little preemptive, you know, turn it out and see what it looks like. And I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I want to tackle that. If I just want to leave it loose or not. I mean, it is a clear bag, not a whole lot I can do. Except try to make all those seams look pretty, since they will be seen by everybody. Of course, if anybody's looking that closely at your bag, I'd be more concerned about why they're doing that. That's what she wants this fringe. Now, I get it. It's clear vinyl. It's marine vinyl. It's not real leather. But it is orange. It's got her fringe. And this piece is essentially done until I finish up with the top piece, which is going to involve 4 top pieces and a zipper. And I will get this done, but not tonight. It's already getting late. I had a late start after work, and yeah, I'm gonna try to get to this tomorrow. And it is ready, so sit tight, and we'll get back to this here in a few. I do believe this is going to be the last day for this bag. And what I'm basically working on is getting the zipper attached to the top pieces. I will also be getting my D-ring connectors attached to this as well. I will be, of course, getting the zipper pull attached to the zipper, and when I'm all done, I will use a zipper end cap to make that look pretty. I don't know if y'all remember, a little while ago in this video, I was talking about learning that my measurements were a little bit off for the zipper. 1 inch on the side that will be where it closes is fine. The other side that was too tight where the zipper tail is going to be. So I'm going to do 1.5 inches marking for that. And I will be sewing these at about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's basically what my zipper foot, if I line up the zipper teeth with the edge of my zipper foot, works out to be about a 1/4 inch. And I'm gonna get these all set. The one thing I'm not gonna do right off the bat is fold up the one side like I did earlier, which ended up making me sew the zipper on upside down. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my markings all done up, and I will start getting the zipper attached, and I'll update you here in just a second. So I've only stitched where that zipper is, because I still have to make a complete circle out of this. So I'm just going to flip these out of the way for now. I am not top stitching this yet either, not until I have all of this attached to the bag completely. The last step will be top stitching. Yeah, for as far as sewing goes anyway. So I'm just going to pull that out of the way for now so that I can do the other side of it. And once I have both sides done where I need them to be for the next step, I will show you. I now have the zipper in place. sewn at the 1/4 inch seam allowance, and it came out really good. What I need to do now is sew these together so that I'm forming a loop. Once I get those sewn together, I'll show you what that looks like, and then I'll have to fit the D-ring connectors as well. I am sure that my brain will come up with an easier way to do this. In fact, I'm pretty sure I already have. However, this was where my brain was at, so this is what we're running with. If I ever get the machine that will allow me to sew suede, then I'll be able to do what I really want to do. But I'm going to go ahead and separately sew these up, and then I'll pull the zipper apart. And yeah, hang tight. We'll get these sewn up and show you what it looks like. I have all of my 4 edges sewn together, and I have opened up the zip. What I'm going to do now is actually make sure that I'm looking at the top. This would be, if I'm folding this out into its final position, so to speak, I want my D-ring connectors to be here and on the other end. So I am giving a little bit of overhang. Just enough overhang to where the D-ring has a little movement. I don't have a specific measurement because I don't. Because I didn't think about that. I know there's going to be a 1/2 inch seam allowance when I sew this up. So I have to make sure that there's at least a 1/2 inch and I don't hit that D-ring, because that would be bad. Needle and metal D-rings, they're not friends. So I'm opening up the seams, and I will take my ruler because I can feel where that D-ring is, and I'm going to base this in before I sew it, but I'm going to take the ruler and make sure that I have a little over 1/2 inch for that seam allowance, and I definitely do. Sorry, that's 1/4 inch, not 1/2 inch. And I have plenty of room. Hi, Bubby. Can you use your inside voice, please? Thank you. I'm going to have to include a picture of him when I do this video, because right now, he is literally wearing a donut. Yeah. Sir Licks-a-Lot is his nickname right now. So, I'm going to base that in place. There's about a 1/4 inch overhang past the material. Let's see if I can show that to you. About a 1/4 inch. So I think that's actually really good. I'm going to go ahead and baste both of these in place and flip it out. Actually, I'm going to baste them both in place, and then I'm going to close up that gap with my 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides, and then I'll show you what it looks like. I've got the D-ring slightly off center, but oh well. Basted in, sewed up that actual 1/4 inch seam allowance, and let's take a peek and see how that comes out when you flip it. I thought I was off, but apparently I wasn't. Well, maybe just a smidge. Okay. Flip all that out. And this would be the way that it would go. Let's go ahead and throw the zipper on there just so I can show you what it looks like. And right side is the side that needs to go on first. do not like pulling zippers all the way apart like this. I struggle so much to get them back on. I like having just a tiny little piece. I got it though. Cool. Let's actually flip that back down to where it would sit. And throw a couple clips on it. That is a snug fit, even at oh, that's why. Even at 1.5 inches on that end, it's still a little bit tight. Might consider 1 3/4 inches, perhaps. But I pull. That's how the top will look when it's closed. So now that I've done that, I'm going to wrap my brain around which side needs to get attached to the bag first, and make sure that I'm doing it correctly so I don't accidentally sew the zipper on backwards again. So hang tight, I'll figure that out, and before I sew it up, I'll show you. I am pretty sure that this time I have got it on the right way, so I did go ahead and fold up that 1/2 inch seam for the interior part. I checked it, I double checked it, I triple checked it. If it comes out wrong this time, I might just scrap it. So we'll see what happens. I have finished attaching the top to the bottom. I'm going to add a 1/8 inch double-sided sticky tape to this edge so that when I fold it down, it will stay in place right where I need it to be. And the good news is my zipper is facing the right way. I did not sew it on backwards. Very happy about that. So I'm going to go ahead and get my double-sided sticky tape on there, get it folded into place. I'm going to stitch around the edge, and I'll have to either turn the bag inside out so I can do it from this side. I don't know. That might be what I do. So I'll let you know here in just a second. Only thing left to do now is to top stitch around the very, very top and add the zipper and the zipper end cap. I did not get the zipper inside out the wrong way, so that's fantastic. And closing to the left. I did in fact sew it with the outside against the table, and that stitching still came out really good. So I'm happy. I just need to top stitch it. So sit tight, top stitch, add on the zipper, get the strap, get that attached, and then we'll be done. And I will show you what all that looks like. The Sheila bag in vinyl, as opposed to suede, is officially done. Things I've learned in this is don't sew your zipper on backwards, number one. Number two, if you're going to do this in vinyl and you don't want the back side of the vinyl to show on the fringe, my recommendation would be to glue E6000 fabric glue, whatever it takes. I don't even know what you would use. I mean, I have the leather cement. I don't know if that would have worked on this, but if at all possible, before you cut the fringe, completely glue together 2 sheets at whatever your measurements are for your fringe, and then cut it. And I was a little bit worried that this was going to come out too short, but turns out it's almost the perfect length for all of the clear vinyl. Now, had I been able to do this in the suede like I wanted to, I would have punched holes in this seam and used leather cording to hold it all in place. That's not an option with this one. And yeah, I'm still surprisingly happy with the result. I'm very disappointed that it's not in suede. One day, when I have a machine that can do suede, I will remake the Sheila bag using the suede. And yeah, Sheila, my dear, I hope you like it. I'm gonna call it a night. Thanks everybody for sticking with me as I somehow came up with this crazy pattern, and it actually worked. I don't know how that happened, but I'll take the win. And thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.